Over at DC Comics, the publisher has gone in a bit of a different direction with the Shazam franchise lately, as Mary Bromfeld, the new champion of Shazam, has been the centerpiece of the franchise throughout kind of various miniseries throughout the DC universe. But today, the publisher is looking to restore Billy Batson as the key hero of the Shazam franchise. And today, we're going to go ahead and dive into the pages of Shazam #1 to see if DC's superstar creative team of Mark Waid and Dan Mora are able to tell an interesting story with the kind of proper status quo of this character. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. And I want to go ahead and kick things off by reading the creative team behind Shazam #1. This issue is written by Mark Waid, featuring artwork from Dan Mora, colors from Alejandro Sanchez, letters from Troy Peteri, and we have a cover illustrated by Dan Mora. I want to go ahead and read the solicitation on Shazam #1 to give you some context on this issue. The world's finest creators present the world's mightiest mortal in a dazzling solo series. Dinosaurs from space, the Clubhouse of Eternity, homicidal worms and talking tigers, atomic robots, alien worlds, mad scientists, sinister curses, and villains from throughout the DC universe. Welcome to the wild adventures of Billy Batson, whose big red alter ego defends the Earth from its weirdest and wildest threats. Want to stop Lex Luthor and the Joker? Call Superman and Batman. International crises, page Wonder Woman. But when Garguax, hopefully I got that name right, Emperor of the Moon, sets his sights on Gorilla City, that's when you shout Shazam. The fan favorite team of Mark Waid and Dan Mora bring the magic. Want to go ahead and show off the cover on Shazam #1 over from Dan Mora. What a kind of gorgeous cover, homaging the very long publishing history for the Shazam / Captain Marvel property. Really happy that DC is kind of restoring like an ongoing series over to the Shazam character. I think he's really interesting in terms of all of the DC heroes and brings out something special as part of their universe. I want to extend a big thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview for Shazam #1 so fast. And I want to go ahead and just kick off this review by spotlighting some of the gorgeous art in the issue over from Dan Mora. I think that Mark Waid's script does a great job pulling so many fascinating kind of story beats out of this, but it's Dan Mora's kind of presentation of the script through the artwork that captures that joyous feeling, thanks to the beautiful facial expressions from these characters and these incredibly complicated page designs that we see on, like, for instance, this page right here, where essentially Shazam is bleeding out of the page. And really, there's just so many incredible kind of pages throughout this series. I was really shocked at just how much detail there is across Mora's artwork in the title. Alejandro Sanchez's colors bring a beautiful red hue to the issue that is just absolutely unmatched. Really love what I see across this title from the visual elements. In terms of some of the writing over from Mark Waid, I think there were some great moments in this issue as well. That being said, I did notice that this Shazam book doesn't have some sort of kind of driving force or big narrative hook for it. Really, you're just looking to kind of catch up with Billy and the rest of his extended family. Now, one of the things I had a problem with in this issue is the kind of focus on Mary Bromfeld, the new champion of Shazam, or rather, the lack thereof in this issue. I think Lazarus Planet Revenge of the Gods, that we've been covering really diligently over on the channel, has done such a phenomenal job fleshing out Mary Bromfeld as the kind of champion of Shazam, along with the new champion of Shazam series over from DC. I really wish there was more of a focus on Mary as a character. And while she's referenced here, it appears she's going to show up in some future Shazam issues thanks to that Night Terrors cover coming out. I still would have liked more of a reference to her in this issue, aside from a couple side conversations, because I think this is a really compelling part of the DC universe that the publisher has been starting to foster over the past couple months at DC in particular. Thankfully, though, I think for the most part, what we get here is still really great. You know, the encounter with the dinosaurs, as mentioned, was a joyous moment across this series. It was interesting kind of catching up with Billy over in the Rock of Eternity and getting some dialogue over between Billy and Freddy, you know, in the issue as well. One of the things that I liked was, even though this issue doesn't have some sort of big central hook to pull readers in right out of the jump, I think one great aspect of it is the fact that this issue actually has a cliffhanger that feels a little bit more palpable and brings out a much different, I think, tone and sensibility to this series as a whole, which I really, really enjoyed reading here. But overall, very excited to kind of see where some of the plot elements go in future issues, to see if Mary Bromfeld is going to be kind of reintroduced over to this series, and to see if there's going to be any sort of the plot threads over from kind of the Jeff Johns comic books weaving back into this series. So overall, I had an absolute blast with Shazam #1 from DC Comics. While I definitely do have a couple gripes, especially with the lack of focus over on the character of Mary Bromfeld, I still think that what's in these pages is absolutely wonderful. I love some of the dialogue that Mark Waid wrote. And one aspect of the issue that I definitely want to go ahead and bring up before we wrap up our review is the fact that there's kind of all these little plot moments that really add up to a greater whole, recalling what happened in the past of Shazam. There's some great elements and characters of older Shazam stories. And also, I really enjoyed the fact that Mark Waid actually wrote a plot thread with Billy becoming a reporter, as it's kind of an interesting way to reference some older stories with the character as well. So I love the fact that Mark Waid is such kind of a steward of comic book continuity and is reinterpreting that continuity through the lens of this new Shazam title. Going forward, it looks like all we need is another appearance over from Mary Bromfeld, and I think this is going to be one of DC's best Shazam books in a long time. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming to check out the video, and I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts over on this new debut for the Shazam property? Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you very soon for our next video.